So do you know what The Village, Signs, Game of Thrones, Knowing, Serenity, and Remember Me have in common? They were all decent enough stories that were completely ruined by their endings. The ending is the most important part of your story, and if you're like most new writers, you haven't given it much or possibly any thought at all. However, your ending can make or break your story, and when it breaks your story, it can go wrong in a few predictable ways. Here are 6 mistakes that new writers make with their endings. Hi, Novelteers. I'm Devlin Blake, novel writing and self-publishing expert, coach, published author, and ghostwriter of over 200 books. If you're interested in working with me, do check out the links in the description. So let's talk about endings and the mistakes you could be making with them that is going to completely destroy your stories. The first example is a forced happy ending. You actually see this quite a bit in movies. This happens because we were all brought up on Hollywood movies, and it ends happily in Hollywood movies 90% of the time. So making an ending happy seems like the right thing to do. And while it can be in many genres, looking at you, romance, a character has to earn their ending. If they don't learn their lesson, they don't get a happy ending. That's how stories work. Stories with forced happy endings that don't really fit the rest of it include Click, Hancock, and Passengers. Mistake number 2 are endings that change the genre. These are also known as the twists that came from out of nowhere. If a person is reading a book about a mysterious assassin in a realistic world, no one wants to find out in the end that they use supernatural magic, and yes, I did actually read a book like that. It wasn't that good. Above all, your ending has to match the story. Once everything can be written off by aliens or magic or whatever the heck it is, readers often feel cheated and like they wasted their time with your book. Stories like this include AI by Steven Spielberg. I know that was a shocker, wasn't it? Sunshine and Knowing. Mistake number 3, which is similar to the first one, is to make an ending happy, which feels like it's not happy at all. The story actually ends happily, but the reader knows something is off about this so-called happy ending, and they hate it for reasons they can't explain. Well, I can't explain it. It's a sexist trope. You usually see this ending played out by the man getting the woman, and the woman losing her dreams or herself in order to get the guy. But because it's happy for him, it's considered a happy ending. Because she's only a prize to be won in these narratives, not a person whose dreams have intrinsic value of their own and deserve to come true. There's Something About Mary is a great example. Sure, Mary and Ted get together and happy ending, but they really shouldn't. Ted basically hired a stalker to wear her down and manipulate a woman who wasn't really interested in him. That's not really a happy ending. My Fair Lady is another movie with a forced happy ending that feels off. Now, I did want to say the movie changed the ending from the original play version. In the original, Eliza left with Freddie, and it was hinted she was going to get her own flower shop, or at least try for it. In the movie version, she was going to marry the professor, who is a narcissistic, abusive man who looks down on her, and her dream of a flower shop, the reason she said yes to his little experiment in the first place, was completely off the table. She was never going to get it. But she's married, so yay, happy ending. Memoirs of a Geisha is another one where the woman gives up her own dreams to marry a guy. Now, in the book, I did want to say she opened up her own tea shop and is independent and content with her life. In the movie version, she ends up with the chairman, never having found the independence, tea shop, or contentment she wanted. But again, she got the guy, so happy ending. Movies like this feel a little off because you know down deep this is not a happy ending. It's only portrayed as one because the man is happy and women are supposed to be happy when they get guys. Now, if they'd gotten the guy and still fulfilled their dreams, that would have been happy all the way around. That's the trope that most romances try to show, that a woman can get the guy and still fulfill her dreams. That's why people love romances. Now let's talk about the 4th mistake writers make with their endings. And this is where everything the character does has no value. This is when something or someone comes in to save the day at the very last minute, time rewinds back to before the story started, it's all a dream, and anything else that makes the struggle of the characters irrelevant. Some of these stories include Click, the 1978 version of Superman, and The Wizard of Oz. And if you're saying that 2 out of 3 of these movies were huge commercial successes, you'd be right. But that was over 50 years ago. What worked then isn't going to work now. Fiction evolves and changes. Readers want more. And before you say that Katniss's efforts in the Hunger Games' last book were irrelevant to the revolution because the rebels overthrow the Capitol without her, that is different. That was not a plot device. That was the entire point. To show that revolutions don't need grand leaders, just the idea of grand leaders. Real revolutions are successful because of the shared teamwork and not because of the efforts of any one leader. That is what the Hunger Games set out to show, and it did a good job of that. Another fairly common mistake new writers make is not tying up loose ends. There's nothing more frustrating than staying with a story through some wild twists and turns to find out how good the ending's going to be, only to find out that all these twists and turns went nowhere. The Game of Thrones is the biggest offender of this currently, although it certainly isn't the only one. Evangelion, the original animated anime series, is another one. I was so disappointed in the ending, and even though they have made several movies since, they don't really measure up. The next mistake is forcing a twist. Forcing a twist is almost as bad as forcing a happy ending, because they don't usually fit. Forcing a twist is where the story goes one step too far and ends up ruining everything that was built up before. Examples of this include Dexter, The Wolverine, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and Glass. Now, I actually go into twist endings a lot more inside my membership site, the Novel Writers Club. You can find it at the link below. There's even a library of twist endings that work for you to incorporate into your own writing. No one owns a twist, after all. They only own the story it's in. And the final thing to avoid is the premature ending. These are the types of stories that cut off right at the climax. In the movie world, you see them most with franchises or series, but they don't really work there either. They do not make viewers happy, and they certainly don't make readers happy. Now, it's fine to set your story up for a sequel, but only after the main issues have been solved. Under no circumstances should you drop your reader off at the climax and call it an ending, or worse, call it a twist ending with no inclination of continuing. This is a mistake that a lot of creepypastas make, and why the genre of creepypasta is not taking that seriously as a genre, even though some of the stories that creepypastas are very good, and others are very not good, because the twists do not work. They're premature endings, not twists. Movie versions of this include The Devil Inside, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and American Psycho, the movie version, not the book version. The Sopranos did it too, when they cut to black without any kind of real resolution or ending. And that's about it for the 6 mistakes that writers make with their endings. If you feel like you need more help with endings, feel free to check out the links in the description below for either my Novel Writers Club or my Accelerated Book Breakthrough. This is Devlin Blake saying, right on.